So let's talk a little bit about depression and anxiety. This is perfectly appropriate on the same day we're talking about inflammation, since depression and anxiety, a lot of that overlaps. Most of the time, people who have depression also have trouble with anxiety and vice versa. Actually a little more rare to find it completely separate, anxiety without any depression and depression without any anxiety. And to me, I don't see depression and anxiety as exclusively psychological phenomena. To me, they're inextricably tied together to body functioning. So let's go right through to nervines then. As we're talking about what is going on with depression and anxiety, obviously some effects with the nervous system, physiologically, as well as when we think of calming our nerves, you're getting on my nerves, etc. So nervines, as opposed to adaptogens, nervines enhance the effect of adaptogens. They can affect the nervous system and the limbic system, similar to adaptogens, but not the same thing. And so if you think of adaptogens, you could think of them as a subset of a nervine, although that's not really quite accurate, but it's one way that might help you think about it. A nervine has a little bit, adaptogens have kind of a broader impact in terms of affecting the entire body and very specifically helping with stress. Nervines do help with stress, and they do help nourish the nervous system. They may not be as wide-reaching as adaptogens are in terms of their impact on the physiology. But nervines are incredibly valuable. Nervines can help protect against stress like adaptogens. They're relaxing. They're not necessarily sedative. So a lot of times people will get those two things confused more frequently because people are generally exhausted. We don't get enough sleep generally. Our nutrition is not very good. Generally, we're exposed to a lot of toxins or problems in the environment that our body has to manage, deal with. And so I think we walk around far more exhausted than we used to as a people. And so when our bodies get more relaxed, it is normal that we would be tired and fall asleep instead of just being relaxed, because the thing is, we are tired and we do need more rest, but we really need nourishment and rejuvenation. And so the body turns to sleep because we're so overwhelmed with problems. The body turns to sleep because it needs that rest. But wouldn't it be nice to give the body some deep nourishment that can create some rejuvenation in that area? And nervines can really help with that in terms of restoring the nervous system, providing the nutrition that is needed to help heal things like your physical nerves and to help soothe emotional nerves. So some examples that many of these we've actually talked about already in class. Isn't that fun that you can recognize Avena sativa? Chamomile is very, very well known. You can find that in tea in almost any grocery store. Skullcap, we've talked a little bit about skullcap, extremely useful. Nervine. Hops, valerian, you may have heard of. Hawthorn, of course. Passion flower and St. John's wort we'll talk about today. Catnip, not just for your cat. Catnip is certainly great for your cat, but it's a wonderful herb for humans in terms of helping relax, helping with calming the nervous system. So why do you need a nervine? Why might this be useful for you? In general, most visits to a physician certainly over 50%. Some people say 75%. Some people even say 90%. I think it depends on how you define your terms, but most visits to physicians are actually for emotional related problems, stress or the effects of stress illness. And so half the population will actually have some sort of psychiatric illness, probably depression or anxiety in their lives. Half of the population will really struggle with this. We go along in our lives and we use substances like caffeine to manage our need for energy, or we use tranquilizers. A lot of people use alcohol to reduce anxiety or to as a downer. And so if you think about the way people live, we're kind of doing this self-medication, upping our energy, relaxing with substances, and not so much with structuring our lives in a way that's actually healthy. We do a lot of short-term or in the moment quick fixes. And so stress doesn't get managed very well. Stress is sort of often medicated away. And the idea of stress is that you have this message that says, hey, your life right now is not working great. Why don't you change some things to reduce the problems? And so stress pops up as an indicator of problems. The idea then is that you solve the problem, not that you just medicate it away. That doesn't work. Medication doesn't work that way. And so herbs work best in the context of a solution to life problems. So using nervines, not a substitute for living healthy. So the first thing we always say with herbs is fix your life so that you're creating the nourishment that you do need and the lack of stress, or the most possible amount of low stress that you could possibly have. So whatever problems that you can solve, find ways to actually solve those problems instead of just putting up with them. And so nervines can make a difference for you and for others. But here's how in your life without herbs, like the first thing to do to make a difference for you. Actually, as a little side point, I'm going to say people don't do a lot of things that are in their best interest. And so then what happens is you acclimate to feeling kind of rotten all the time. And it sort of feels normal. And so you just kind of feel yucky and you normalize that. And then you kind of get used to just coping with feeling that bad. You get used to not really sleeping very well. You get used to not having a lot of energy. You get used to just getting every cold that comes down the road, or feeling just kind of generally yucky. Your gut not really working very well. It just becomes a thing that you've acclimated to. And so then you haven't solved the problems. You've just sort of acclimated to it. And you don't realize how bad you feel until you start fixing some things. So here are some things you could do to start your fix. So one would be improving your gut health. You improve it, of course, by eating better, by eliminating a lot of the processed foods, a lot of the sugary foods, soda, kind of the things that are really damaging to your body. Eliminate those, improve your gut health. Take care of your microbiome, your gut biome, the bacteria that are in your gut. Find ways to nourish those. Protect yourself against environmental contaminants. Sometimes you can't move if you live next to a power plant, but sometimes you can move if you live next to a power plant. Or sometimes you can find ways to protect yourself from environmental contaminants that are around you. And the more knowledge you can gain about those kinds of things, the better off you can be when you can get rid of them and either find alternatives or eliminate some of those problems. Definitely eating an anti-inflammatory diet. We talked about that. Nutrition density. So when you think about nutrient-dense foods, what you're looking at are the most nutrients you can pack into a food as opposed to calorie density foods. And so you think about, if you're going to eat something, you want to go for nutrition. So for example, I know people make this joke all the time about kale. The only good kale is the kale that you can slide out of the pan into the trash. Kale can be done very well so that it is actually really good. You can also eat kale that is prepared very poorly. And so you can see why somebody wants to throw it away, because it's not prepared very well. Kale with a lot of stems, that's not pleasant at all. All those stems, very tough, very bitter. They're not. So you buy chopped kale in the store and it's like half stems. That's not a fun way to eat kale. It's not very yummy. So find ways to increase the nutrient density of your diets. And so plants are going to be your go-to here. Meat is not very nutrient dense. Plants are incredibly nutrient dense. Get enough sleep, exercise, drink enough water. Those are so basic. It's hard to overemphasize how important sleep, exercise, hydration, and good nutrition are. When if somebody comes into my office and they want a diagnosis and they have trouble, it is awfully hard for me to see what's really going on in the context of poor sleep, poor exercise, poor hydration, and poor nutrition. Because a lot of what might be going on is a result of those things and not a result of anything beyond that. And so if you clean up your diet, get enough sleep, exercise, drink water, cut out all the yucky stuff, it is very, very, very likely. In fact, I have never seen a case where this hasn't happened, where the person hasn't felt so much better. They almost don't have a diagnosis, or they absolutely don't have a diagnosis anymore. It is that important. Doesn't cost anything. You don't have to go to therapy to get enough water, to drink enough water that day. And the last thing, prioritize gratitude. I can't say enough about the usefulness of gratitude across the board for psychological health, for spiritual health, for your relationship health. Gratitude improves everything. And gratitude is not hard. It doesn't require any special skills except maybe humility and practice. The more you practice being grateful, the easier it is to feel that gratitude. And so I really mean it when I say practice gratitude. Some people don't see that as literal as it can be. Like if you every day take a few minutes to literally practice being grateful, to practice feeling grateful, to practice seeing the things around you that you can be grateful for. That has a huge impact on your overall health, particularly your psychological health. Okay, a nervine, an herb that is a nervine, it does more than one thing. It's not just, oh, well, that's good for your nerves. It's a little bit more than that. It does nourish your whole nervous system, calming your emotion, calming pain, helping nourish the actual physiological nerves. Some nervine herbs are more calming than other nervine herbs. Some can be a little stimulating, but not in the sense of getting hyperactive. Stimulating in the sense of feeling more like rejuvenation, that kind of an idea. Not enough to create nervousness. So it's like the difference between drinking a Coca-Cola and drinking some really lovely yerba mate. Two different things. Both are stimulating, but one may result in more anxiety and nervousness or hyperactivity than the other. Yerba mate is the calmer one. In case you're wondering, in case you're like, Allison, I still don't know. Okay, I'm hoping they're laughing. I'm laughing. It's hard to do this sometimes without an audience because I really miss that. All right, depression and anxiety. Now, these are very complex problems in life, very complex. They're not just the result of one thing. So a lot of times people think, again, they get stuck in that trap we've talked about before, the idea of one cure for one problem. And so we think, oh, I'm going to find the cure for depression, the cure for cancer, the cure for anxiety, the cure for IBS, this one thing that just does the magic. When these are all results of many, many, many influences. Many things will create depression or IBS or cancer, etc. Multifaceted causes. And so I think of depression as a signal that the body is saying, help, I need more nourishment, I need protection, I need help. The body is suffering. When you do the things that create better physiological health, you create better psychological health. It just goes together. For me, there is no way to separate the two. And if someone comes into my office and they are depressed, the first things we talk about are physiological health related things, because you can't create good psychological health when there's physiological suffering. It is so much harder, takes so much longer. It doesn't really work. You have to nourish the brain first before you ask it to do some workouts. And so if I'm interested in doing something that is hard brain wise, I'm going to nourish my brain. I'm going to give it nutrients, I'm going to give it sleep, I'm going to hydrate it, give it some really good healthy fats. That's what the brain needs. And I'm not going to expect that my brain will work very well if I'm not giving it the nutrients that it needs. Same thing for depression and the entire body, or anxiety. There are so many things that affect those two, anxiety and depression, those two things. Your gut health, huge impact on anxiety, huge impact on depression. Gut health is critical to resolving anxiety and depression. The state of your probiotics in your gut directly impacts your memory, your concentration, your anxiety, your level of depression. So fixing the gut. You fix the gut through providing yourself with great nutrition. So nutrients including minerals and including plant foods, probiotics, all of those things create good gut health. Even like things like butyric acid, that butter actually named because butyric acid. So those fats will help coat your intestinal walls, healing that epithelial layer that helps probiotics be more healthy in the gut, being able to survive. So all kinds of nutrients are needed by the gut to create a good, healthy gut. Those nutrients, probiotics actually communicate directly with your brain, um, up the vagus nerve. They will tell your brain the state of the world, kind of. It's like the brain reads the news, and the news is shared by probiotics in large part. All right, gut health. So light intake. This means you need enough light in the day. You need no light at night. It should be dark at night. It should be, you should get that blue light in the morning that will help signal your eyes, sending those signal to the brain and telling your brain, hey, this is where you set your circadian rhythm, so that your circadian rhythm can be protected, so that you don't think that it's morning when it's 2 p.m. Your body knows what time it is, and that's why you're just constantly so sluggish if you're waking up really late. It's not like you can fool your body and say, oh, the sun's not really up, or the sun really is up now, at 3 a.m. when it's dark, or 9 p.m. when it's getting dark. All right, so light intake is a big deal. If you can fix your sleep, fix your circadian rhythm, you can do some exposure to blue light. You can buy a blue light. There are blue lights that don't damage your eyes. You can check those out. If you keep your bedroom really dark, all of this can help fix that circadian rhythm and give you that sunlight. You walk out, you get great vitamin D. If you can't make that vitamin D very well from the sun, like some people can't, I can't, I'm really poor at converting sunlight into vitamin D in my body. So I have to take a supplement. And so if you find some way to create that light intake, that vitamin D, that will be a huge help with depression. I could almost write vitamin D separately on this list because it's such an easy fix, but I think I've mentioned that before to you. Hydration, exercise, sleep, we just talked about. Reducing stress, improving your emotional health. So learning emotion regulation skills, learning good relationship skills, managing your work life so that you feel like you're in a healthy place with your work. Whatever the work you do, you can create ways to make that work more healthy in terms of your circumstance, your environment, your attitude, the people around you, the way you're treated, the way you treat others, etc. And then, of course, gratitude, self-respect, sense of purpose. All of these things will affect depression, and you kind of have to work on all of them. You can't just expect one pill to do all of these things and create the many faceted solutions to being depressed. So when your body is depressed, it's sort of like, it's like I've been signaling you forever here to fix some things, and you're not fixing them. And now I'm like kind of at the end of my rope. So we're just going to put this general stop alert out. Here I am anthropomorphizing again, general stop alert that says, hey, it's time to fix this. Like you got to get me some help. I need some help here. All right, so let's talk a little bit about these two plants, St. John's wort and passion flower. I love these two plants. St. John's wort, you may remember hearing on David Hoffman's part 3, I think, that you may have listened to last week, where he talks specifically about how St. John's wort suddenly took on this new life as this new thing after 1 or 2 research studies. So St. John's wort used a long time as a nervine. So a nervine, a helpful nerve restorative, wound healing plant that was wonderful in that way. Very calming for emotions, very calming for physical nerves. Anyway, we'll talk about antimicrobial, all that sort of thing. And so then there's this study, I think he said this, on St. John's wort as an antidepressant, and suddenly everyone's off to the races reclassifying St. John's wort as a specific for depression, when that's really not the chief or the key message of this plant. And so people got all excited because it seemed to help with depression, and then the whole world jumped on the bandwagon of, oh, St. John's wort is that's the antidepressant herb, and forgot completely what else it did, forgot really what the whole thing was, just forgot about it. So in the context of it being a nervine, helping heal wounds, helping heal, helping with the antidepressant action and healing the nerves and the wounds, all of those things together, that kind of makes a lot more cohesive sense, doesn't it? Than just thinking of it simply as, oh, the antidepressant herb. So it's much more than that. It's much deeper than that, much more whole. That antidepressant piece of it is just a very small chunk. And so there's really great scientific evidence for its efficacy as an antidepressant for mild to moderate depression. More severe depression, to my mind, signals more issues with the whole system. Not that St. John's wort isn't strong enough. It's that we're targeting just one little piece, and we need to target much more in the system. And so I don't think of St. John's wort as a weak antidepressant. No, I think of St. John's wort as one little piece that might help with one part of the problem. And if it's not enough, then obviously the problem is in more areas. And it's not that St. John's wort is weak or too weak to do the job or needed to be stronger. No, it's that the problem crosses more than just what a nervine will help you with. So it is antiviral, it is antimicrobial, and this is part of why it's such a great wound healer. You know, the topical application of St. John's wort is really fantastic for helping with skin problems like that. Antispasmodic, again, you're looking at the nerve being nourished and helped. Anti-inflammatory. You know, interestingly, it does stimulate bile. And so when you think of herbs as having multiple secondary metabolites, many things that help the plant survive and thrive in its environment, St. John's wort can help humans in a similar way, multiple paths. And so this whole stimulating bile can help with the whole digestive process. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why people worry about St. John's wort interfering with other medications, because it can speed up digestion enough that the medication doesn't stay in the liver long enough, or it gets broken down faster than your doctor wants it to be broken down. And so if you're eating in a particular way where you have a number of really digestive stimulating plants, of course, St. John's wort is just one of many plants that help stimulate digestion. That is going to be something to think about if your doctor wants whatever medication you're on to stay in your body for a longer time. Of course, your body is not interested in that very much. Your body's kind of saying, look, let's get the nutrients out and move things along. Why let things stagnate? Why would you do that to us? And so that's kind of an explanation for what the part of the deal is about St. John's wort and medication. Anxiolytic. So what that means is it reduces anxiety. So like most nervines, they are anxiolytic. They are somewhat antidepressant because they all help with that emotional healing, that emotional nervousness, the actual central nervous system health. Passion flower. I love passion flower because every person that I see who is anxious also has trouble with their gut. It seems to just be one-to-one correlation. I can't remember seeing anybody who came to me and said, I have trouble with anxiety, who did not also have trouble with their gut. And so passion flower is pretty awesome because it's very healing to the gut. It's very soothing and healing for the gut. And it's also very, very good at reducing anxiety. In fact, there's a study that showed that it's similar to benzodiazepine, which is a kind of anxiety medication that I am not in favor of because it is very addictive. And not only is it addictive, but you develop tolerance to benzodiazepines. And so then you need more and more and more to get the same effect. And pretty soon you're sort of at your maximum and you're then not getting the effect that you want. And not only that, you're getting worse anxiety. And when you try and go off of them, you're getting rebound anxiety, which feels terrible. And so benzodiazepines is a method of managing anxiety. I think is a terrible method. There are ways to do it without resorting to a benzodiazepine. Passion flower in this study was shown that I think it was 45 drops of a tincture 3 times a day, which is a lot. You know, you're going to be going through a lot of tincture that way. 45 drops is basically 3 squirts from the shoot, I can't remember the name of that little thing when you pull it out of the tincture and then you squirt it, the little squirt thing. That's what it is. It's a squirt thing. Okay, so 3 squirts of the squirt thing that's in the little bottle. That's about 45 drops. And so you do that 3 times a day, and people were finding that it really, really helped. And if you're interested in, you know, better gut, no benzodiazepines, then you may want to look into just doing passion flower for a help there. So passion flower, very, very helpful as a nervine. So those are 2 examples of nervines and 2 examples of herbs that will help with anxiety and depression. But remembering that the whole big picture for anxiety and depression is sort of like the whole big picture of inflammation. All of these things are whole body system issues. You can't just take one system out of context and think that you're going to work on that and then ignore all the pizza and Coke and, you know, stress that is happening in the other part of your life and think that St. John's wort or your medication or anything is going to be able to be strong enough to fix the rest of your life. So again, the idea is everyone runs into problems. Like, welcome to the human race, guys. You know, we're all humans, and that's sort of the definition of being a human, is learning how to manage the challenges that come into our lives. And so challenge comes up, you don't just ignore it, you don't just skip over it, you don't try and get rid of it through substances, even if they are herbs. You fix the problem. You figure out, what do I need to do to get through this challenge so that I'm in a better place? So if it's stress from work, instead of just taking more adaptogens, you have to also solve the stress so you can get rid of it. And then you can create health in your life, and you can use herbs to help enhance things and help you get over little troubles, not as a general method of escaping. Okay, I hope that's helpful and that you found some value there. And this is our last week, so that's kind of exciting. And we'll chat tomorrow about more herbs. Talk to you then.